Turn It On, the Level 42 fan podcast, is in no way affiliated with the band. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are solely the speaker's own.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Turn It On, the Level 42 fan podcast. We're here with our typical trio from here in the U.S., here to toss the time away with all things Level 42, the greatest group ever to walk planet Earth. Mr. Mikey Payne, hello, and welcome to the House of Usher.
Hello, it's great to be back, breathing the fresh, clean air.
That's right. And Mr. Winston Walker, Windman with many faces and many names. Welcome and hello to you, my good man in the storm.
Hello, everyone. The puns.
Oh, it's too much.
No, it's not.
And Bob Considine also saying hello to all the Level 42 fans out there, both past, current, and future from all over the world. As always, we really appreciate you being here, and your likes and listens and follows all mean a lot to us, and we are grateful for you. Thanks for tuning in. Guys, good to talk to you again. We have a great special guest today, but before we do, I just wanted to check in with our Level With Me segment where we talk about what's caught your ear lately amongst the huge canon of Level 42 songs or Level 42 related songs. I always want to hear what Winston's listened to, so I wanted to start with you, Win.
Okay, well, two things. So I think I mentioned this privately to you. Somebody did a fan remix of Love in a Peaceful World.
That's correct, yeah.
And I really should have looked to see who it was because it was pretty good. But I had questions about it because it just sounded like they just, well, besides editing it, it sounds like they kind of just pumped up Mark's bass. Like maybe they separated it and then remixed it so the bass seemed a lot louder to me than it is in the actual track, but maybe that's just me. I don't know if anyone else has listened to it.
So I heard it when, and I really liked it. I liked that you could hear some of the bass that, it's a little underplayed in the song if you really listen to it.
Right.
But I really did appreciate that remix. And I'm sorry, I don't know who did it either. Well, maybe by the, as we go through the show today, I'll try to get a name and we could talk about it. Yeah, but good call.
Yeah, and the other thing was, since we talked to Stuart Clayton last week, we discussed the Physical Presence album, which is a great album. So I actually went back and I started listening to those 3 gigs that they called that album from: Coronet Woolwich, Gold Diggers Chippenham, and Hexagon Reading. So I've been listening to a lot of those songs. And then, of course, today I heard, what is it, Are You Hearing with the Flubs in it?
Yeah, that's
always a classic. Fun.
Always a classic. That's the one where Mark kind of forgets the words.
Yes, twice.
And the funny thing about that is when he's like, I forgot the words, and he's like, what's the first line? Right. And Mike says, life is a game. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's pretty apropos, right? I mean, that's life is a game at that point. That always makes me laugh. Yeah, what about you, Mikey?
I, still working on some stuff with 42 FM. So I've been listening to a lot of Mike Lindup's Changes 2 album recently. And I just a couple of days ago filtered All Is One. And that strip down was just as brilliant with the lyrics or without the lyrics. So much stuff under there. Love it. So digging on Changes 2 quite a lot. And I've been working on some early gigs too. And was listening to one from, I think it was March 1981. And just hearing the rawness and them just playing their heart out. It's been really fun to hear, and going back all the, 43 years now.
It's amazing the speed and energy they played with back in the day. It really was amazing.
Yeah. It was been nice to listen to. And also don't forget, there's still tickets available for Mike's gig in December 21st, I think it is. offhand.
Yeah, go get it. Go to MikeLindup.com if you're interested. Great show to go see. I'm jealous I'm not going to be there as many of us are. For me,
What about you,
guys, for me, guys, the one song that I kind of like heard for the first time in a long time is controversial track, the song Tracy, but the version off the Sirens live album. You know, sometimes when Level 42 puts out a live video or a live CD, it comes in the mail and you listen to it once or twice, you watch it, and then it kind of, you don't go back to it for a while. And that version of Tracy is really great. It's without going through the whole format of the song, I would just say it's basically like putting Tracy in a blender. And it's a really unique arrangement. And for those who are kind of, meh on Tracy, I would suggest give that live version a shout.
I am laughing right now.
Why?
Because me and Lolita were talking about that yesterday, that song. Not the live version, but just that version. I like the groove, but it's cheese. The song.
Great. So Winston just gave away our special guest a little bit, so I figure we give her a proper introduction. This is a very special person that goes back in Level 42 fandom as far back as anybody, dating back to the halcyon days of the old Level 42 Fan Digest. She has a billion stories about her life as a Level 42 fan, a singer, a world traveler, and of course, she's a two-time survivor of the World Trade Center disasters, and we are blessed by her physical presence here today. She is Miss Lolita Jackson, MBE. Lolita, welcome.
Hi, everybody. How you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Hey.
Hey.
Where in the world are you, Lolita?
I'm in New York today, but I was in Seattle all last week and actually saw another digester level head, Daniel James. So I met up with him for dinner in Seattle, which was great. So thinking about you guys even when I'm away.
That is great. How is Daniel
He's doing great. Mm-hmm. He's doing great. It was really great to see him. And I haven't actually seen him in a number of years. So it was really great to reconnect. We were talking about memories of flipping through the Virgin Megastore at HMV, stacks to look for random imports that we couldn't get in the U.S. and pinching our pennies to buy them and all those sort of good things. So it was really great to remember those memories.
Right. It's awesome.
The first time I met Lolita was when I came to stay with Winston, and it was, May 1996. And I remember you taking me all over, you and Win both, all over Manhattan. And you took me up to your office there in the World Trade Center and got some great pictures there. Although I was too scared to go out on the top of it outside. So Winston was nice enough to do it for me. But we just met through, the first generation of internet fans, that liked Level 42. And all these years later, it's just, we were really, privy to a really good experience.
Absolutely. In fact, the funny thing is, the only reason I ever found any of you is that somebody said to me, the internet was young. There was no Google, there was no Facebook. So how do you connect on the internet? And someone suggested to me, find something that you like and look it up. And there's probably people talking about it. And I did a search on Lycos. Remember Lycos?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I did a search on Lycos and I found the Level 42 Digest. And that's how I found everyone. So that was it. And that was
That's
late
funny.
1995, maybe. And so then I met all of you starting in early 1996.
I can't remember. Wasn't Prodigy? Didn't there was like a Level 42 board for Prodigy, or am I dreaming that?
There could have been, but I never heard of it. I was never on that.
The only one I remember early on was the one I think Eric Hansen started.
Right.
Yeah, that's the one we're all thinking about.
Yeah.
So I met everybody here.
Lolita would be happy to find out that I'm still on Prodigy. How's that for?
Look, I still have AOL, so I have the same email address since 1995. I'm like the last person left.
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
one too. I just don't tell people.
That's brilliant.
I got rid of that as soon as I got a cable modem. I got rid of AOL because I was like, well, I don't need to be dialing in with no modem, so I don't need it, because that was, in my mind, that's what AOL was,
Yeah, but
Right.
Win, I have a disc that says I get 100 hours free.
No.
Oh my goodness!
It would be
Wow.
awesome. I would be awesome to still have a disc. I had a friend that I worked with who worked for AOL, and he has like this really cool plaque because he worked there like 10 years or something. It has that, his name and all that stuff in a picture, but it has that disc mounted in the plaque,
It's great.
So anyway,
Yeah.
I've got a question just to start off the early level 42 stuff. So how did you first become aware of the band? Like, first song that you heard? I know the answer.
So I have a conscious answer and an unconscious answer, and I know Winston knows the unconscious answer. The conscious answer was I was 17 years old in 1985, turning 18, and Something About You had come out my senior year of high school. My best friend was upset. She's like, "Mark is fine," and also said that the song was great, and so fell in love with the song, fell in love with the video, and had me listen. That's the first time I consciously knew about the band.
Mhm.
My unconscious knowledge of the band came because I'm a Black person who grew up in the New York City catchment area, and Star Child was heavily played on Black radio stations. Heavily played. I thought it was a Black band from the US. So Star Child, that whatever year that was, 81, 82?
81.
81, I
Yeah.
guess. 81. I was 13, and it was on once an hour. I mean, it was on all the time. So that's when I really first heard the band, was 1980. Oh, yeah. Very popular.
Was that like
song.
KTU? Was it on KTU?
I don't remember.
Probably.
KTU was that disco station, but I honestly
Yeah.
don't remember if it was played there.
BLS.
Yeah,
BLS.
definitely BLS.
Definitely BLS. Yeah.
What was BLS? 107.5 or 107.1?
Yes.
Yep.
107.5 WBLSS.
Yeah, Frankie Crocker.
Frankie Crocker. The Chief
Way
Crocker.
down.
Yeah, I bet we could look and see. I bet you someone has put online, like, over the years, like the KTU playlist, and I wouldn't be surprised, because New York, I think in those times, if there was a hot song, all those stations were playing it.
Yep. Agreed.
First, Lolita, before I go, I was going to say, what have you been listening to lately? What's been in your mind?
So I actually love instrumental music, even though I'm a singer, especially songs that have a really great rhythmic bass line. And there's a song by Incognito called Echoes of Utopia. And it basically stars Stuart Zender killing it. Oh, it's just the best song ever. To the point that I made my poor band in Edinburgh play it when we just had a gig. But bass player is the best bass player I've ever played with in any band. So he was loving it. He had his 5-string, but everybody else was like, "What is this song?" Then they loved it once they learned it. But and I was able to meet Incognito. Well, I already knew Bluey for 20 years, which is another story. But they played here in New York this past April, and the horn player, the trumpet player, is from Dundee in Scotland. Everybody else waited to talk to Bluey and everybody else in the band. I waited for him. I said, "I know you're from Dundee. Let's talk." I told him that I played that song. He said, "I did the arrangement." And I almost cried. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I met the guy who did the song." Because he's the main arranger for all of their horns and some of their other songs. He was talking about Nickel Thompson, now being the trumpet player for Level 42. And they used to play together because he's from Aberdeen. So I feel like all these bands and all the people in these bands know each other and are connected. So it's connected to Level 42 in a way, even though he's obviously not in Level 42.
Right. Yeah. Fantastic. Fantastic.
So you guys tell me, like, I feel like Winston and Mikey and Lolita, you've had more experiences together than I have. I was obviously there for, the Shepherd's Bush Mark King gig in 1999. But you go back further in terms of travel together, correct? Wasn't the International Level Fest in '98? Was that the first?
Yes, and also I think for about 3 or 4 years in a row, Thanksgiving week, a bunch of us would just agree to meet, and wherever the band was touring, that's where we would go. So sometimes it's Jazz Cafe, sometimes it's Bilston and all these other places, but we literally all would just fly in let's say the Friday before and leave the Friday after Thanksgiving or whatever, but we'd just all be together for those that week for those couple years.
Right, and due to the reason that the internet had just come of age, you didn't really have to rely on the official fan clubs anymore to find out what the band's doing and kind of organize as friends and fans. It was really easier to mobilize and meet up back then. As it hadn't been before. It was really hard to get information. At least, maybe in New York it was different, but outside of New York, it was really hard to get any information at that level. Period.
Right.
I really didn't try personally. Like, I just figured whatever I saw, like, it didn't even occur to me, even that early there's magazines that you could get from England, and you could look in the back, and they'd have ads for bands, but it didn't even occur to me. And I always looked at the fan club stuff like, I'm going to do that one day. And I never did. I never joined anybody's fan club, but
You didn't get those fan club digests when it was actually a printed little leaflet, I guess.
No, for the band, for Level 42.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I know I've seen fan club booklets that they put out,
right?
That's that people gave me, but these were like multi-page glossy color things.
Yes,
right.
Yeah, I've seen those, but I never subscribed to it. I just met people over the years, and they would give me a copy of it. But I used to see in the albums like, write to this and sign up, and I was like, I should do that, and I never did. So.
And for me, the reason I got into those things is because for me it was about the people. I was not very well traveled before getting to be part of this community. I had been to the Caribbean, and then my first trip abroad outside of sort of this part of the world was to England in 1995. So only a year before all this started. And meeting all these folks and deciding, for my one of my birthdays, I decided to do 5 cities through Europe by myself. And one of those stops was to meet Laurel Anderson at the time, now Mueller, and David Goodall of the Isle of Wight. And those are the first 2 people who I actually had met outside of Winston in person. And that sort of birthed the idea of the ILF. It's like, hey, even though the band's not together and, they're not doing anything, let's all of us get together. So we did like our own tour through cities in the UK, and we bought the shirts made, ILF 98 shirts, and we went to Bath, and it was fantastic. And that would really opened up my world to, there's a lot of other people out there that like the same stuff I do. Cause I was always the weirdo that got really into bands and, didn't listen to just black music and all these things. And it was just really great to have this sort of cornucopia of people from all over who understood where I was coming from.
Right. Who didn't say, please don't play Level 42. Yeah.
I never had that experience because I was never ridiculously playing them around other people. So, and I guess living by myself most of my life wasn't like I was subjecting my family to the band.
For me, I was a major fan, and there was a small subset, about 10 of us, that really loved them when I was in college. So my issue was that my roommate was like, "Don't play It's Over first thing in the morning when I have to go to class. It's depressing me." So they were mad, but it's just like my song choices were not the ones that were the popular ones in '87 when Lessons in Love and all that stuff. I was playing everything else, and I remember hotly anticipating when Staring at the Sun came out, and we were in somebody's room, and somebody had bought the CD. We sat there to listen to it was a whole group of us that did that. So I was in college at the time.
It's funny. I always felt like people who are fans of Level 42, it was always it was almost like a secret club in a way. Like you were in on a big secret if you were into Level 42. That's the way I was taking it. Like, it's hard to explain to people what the appeal is, but if you get it, you get it. And there's like an instant bond,
Yeah, and back in those days too, I met you and Winston in New York City for 3 days in May of '96 again, which was incredible. In fact, we went to see the movie Twister when it debuted there in New York. So that's why I was able to look up the date.
I remember
We've got
that.
debris.
Yeah, and then I met you guys again, and then met so many other people from the Digest days that I'd never met before. I think it was at the one man tour, wasn't it? I think.
Right. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, that's kind of when everyone on this whole big forum that we'd been kind of introducing ourselves to kind of met. But I knew we had some Level Fest and some other things I think before that, but yeah, it was a lot of fun back then, and it was very organic too.
Yeah, it was a little weird for me because I was like, Lolita, I didn't know. Like when I got the internet, I'm like, what's this thing for? Like, and someone is like her suggested, like, just search for stuff that you like. That's what I started doing. I was like, oh, Low 42, and obviously I stumbled across a Digest, and then it may have been Lolita who had the idea, like, oh, there's a few of us in New York. Let's get together one day.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I believe it was supposed to be me, Lolita, and someone else, and we met literally around the corner from my apartment at a Starbucks.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure that was the first time I'd ever set foot in a Starbucks, because I don't drink coffee. So it's like, why would I go into a coffee place? Not knowing that they have a lot of other stuff. But whoever the other third person was, they didn't show up.
Right.
So it was just me and you. And then we wound up going back to my apartment. So like listen to stuff, and you might have brought like a Bob C tape or something.
Yep, I was down with the Bob C tapes. I'm like, who's this Bob C guy? And I want his tapes. That's right.
Yeah,
I had all of those joints.
And I was like, yo, I couldn't, my mind was blown, like throw this in the VCR, like this is all stuff I had never seen before. Like obviously I had seen stuff that was on MTV, but there was like the Rock Palace shows and stuff. I'm like, oh my God, like a whole show of these guys live and it's video, so I remember that. And then I remember you like loaning me the other tapes, but I so at that point though, in my internet life, I was like, I don't want to tell people that I met somebody on the internet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, right.
And then eventually that, nobody got stalked, no one got kidnapped, and you're like, okay, it's not, it's all.
It's funny that just lends itself to it. It's kind of the same thing. Like back in the late '90s, if you were like met somebody online to date, it was like there was a stigma, and now like everybody knows,
of course, yes. Yeah. Yep. But I think like making that first trip, if I didn't know Lolita, I would have never done that,
She's a people person.
Felt better like with someone that, well, I know her now. You know what I mean? Like, we've met, and I had been outside the country, but but that was all like when I was in the military. Like I had never had a vacation overseas, but she's like a great organizer. So it's like, oh, we get this flight, go out of JFK, whatever, blah, 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 which I hate JFK to this day. That was my first experience flying out of JFK.
All right.
It's the worst. Well, it was the worst back then. I don't know.
It's not much better
what it is now, but I remember that. I just remember like it just being the best thing ever. Like, we're going to see some people that we love, and we're meeting up with other people who love that thing that we love.
Yeah.
Some of which we've met and some of which we haven't, but it was just a great, amazing experience. And then the music was great. So can't beat that.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember just the diversity of people from all over the place when in Lolita, that one man that first, because we all met up at the pub, and there was probably 30 or 40 of us scattered in this one area. And we were just as excited to see each other as seeing the gigs and stuff. And I don't know what you guys remember from back then. I remember drinking a lot of cider back then, and I think Wynn bought half of them for me. But
yeah, I never had cider.
It was Don Z, actually. Yeah,
I never had cider ever until you came to New York.
Ah, okay.
I mean, I'd heard of it, but it was like,
yeah.
You want me to drink apple juice with liquor in it? Like, no, I'm not. That's not something I want to do. And it's like I love it. So
yeah.
Well, one of the reasons that was special for me is the first time I'd ever seen the band.
Right.
So we go to that bus tour, and Lester was the very first show.
Yeah.
So to be with a bunch of people who I knew loved the band as much as I did, and we had those matching shirts that Shannon got made, screaming for every song. I mean, everything about that was just the time of my life. I'd never seen them when I was with, Chef's Bush. It might have been like 60 or 70 of us by the time that gig was over.
That was insane.
I mean, we were mentioned in the review because we were so loud and raucous in the front. But I loved that. I was like, that picture when I reposted it, I guess it was January of this year because it was 25th anniversary. And recalling in Facebook all the marriages and the children, and unfortunately people were no longer here. And that picture was a moment in time.
Yeah.
About everything about why we all love each other, you know?
Yep. Yeah. And my hair was darker for sure.
Well, everybody's hair was darker.
That's right.
Yeah, I remember like the whole Shepherd's Bush thing was kind of surreal. It was fun, but somehow I didn't get to see Boone.
Oh.
So I somehow missed that.
Oh, no.
Part, right? What can you do? I've seen Boone before, but not like that. I mean, I've seen him in concert, but it was just like, how am I in this not humongous venue afterwards? And this happened and I didn't see it. Like, it's not like I went to the bathroom for 20 minutes or something. But the other thing is, okay, we came outside, we took that picture, but then we get the idea, oh, let's go to Chinatown, we'll get something to eat. And in my mind, I'm like, how are all these people going to fit in a restaurant?
Right.
That's not going to happen. Well, obviously we did, but I remember, like, I found a restaurant, me and Chris Dickman, and then someone else was like, oh, we got seating over here. And I'm like, there's like 60 of us. And I'm like, and there's 2 restaurants. I had no idea how big these places were, right? And then we go in there, and I remember like a couple of us, we sort of like everyone's in this big room, but a couple of us got relegated to like the kids' room at Thanksgiving. You know, like I think it was like me, Bob, and Greg, and somebody else. You know, but it was like just the thought of it, like all of these people that were at this show, and now we're all in the restaurant, and just like it was just crazy fun. So
you hit the word when surreal is totally what I felt, because it seemed like a dream. Like I'd never been to England before. Yeah. I'd seen Level 42 at the Garden, but that wasn't quite the same seeing Mark King 8 feet away, you know?
Yeah.
And we were you guys continued on, but I was only there for that first show, and I was in and out. And it seemed like, when I think back of it now, it was just like a dream. Like, did this really even happen, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
amazing. I think the Super Bowl happened that weekend.
It did happen.
Yes, that's right.
That was a big part of the legend of people getting married and stuff. And it was the worst Super Bowl ever.
Yeah.
Like, we stayed up to the middle of the night to watch this thing, and it was just such a bad game.
Remember, you guys, Lolita, you played a big part in this in the cover album, the cover 42 album. When was that?
Yeah.
Where did that take place?
I don't remember what year, but I remember volunteering to help with liner notes. So I was just like looking stuff up and typing stuff up, and we were editing it together. Who else was involved with that? I like totally forgetting.
Zach Nielsen did Dream Crazy, if I remember.
Well, I don't. I mean, there's lots of people. I mean, I could pull up a copy of those 2 CDs right now, but I mean,
oh great.
I don't know who organized it, which I guess is what we're getting.
I don't remember either.
I don't really remember. Now I do remember us being in New York and that studio space that you used to go to, and you recording, because there was the one track that you did with the saxophonist, and Alandis came up and played bass, and I remember we all went to that studio to record.
Right.
What was that like? Was it like nerve-wracking? Like, like, I'm going to do this in front of my friends? And I mean, Lolita, you've always performed, but it's got to be a little awkward to kind of pull off a Level 42 cover.
Yeah, I mean, particularly because I don't sing Level 42 songs ever in any of my other bands. I've sung backup for someone else doing them, but I've never sung lead in them. So that was always a little nerve-wracking. You're right. Was it nervous? It's just like, and I don't want to, because you don't want to sound exactly like them, but you don't want to sound too far off either. So that was what I was dealing with.
Did you do Lying Still? Is that what you did? I can't remember.
I think that's what I did, right, Win?
Yeah, you did. And it was really good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, really.
Thank you.
I have it somewhere. I just found a whole bunch of cassettes recently, so I know I've got it in there somewhere. I'd like to hear it again.
Yeah, I have not heard that in years. So
Yeah, I'm sure I have it. I mean, I know I have it, and I know there were two, and Bill Wilson still had the cassette artwork, so I'm pretty sure Bill had something to do with it. Yeah, and there was two, because it was like cover 42 and Impeccable Groove, and then cover 42 Level with Me. And I'm trying to think of. I'm kind of looking at the artwork as we speak to see, okay, well, who did what, but which one had lines still on it? Elson had did Overtime.
Right.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I remember.
Morgan did Children Say.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Lying Still, Zach. So on the first one, or one of them, Zach did a version of Lying Still. And
So there's two versions of that song.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm drawing a blank now. But anyway, I do have that stuff, so I'll send it to whoever is looking for it. And someone made a CD cover too for it, which looks really amazing.
When did you become a singer? Was it based on your level 42, or just it was before?
Oh no, me becoming a singer?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a story. So I'll try to keep it brief. I started playing instruments when I was 9. So I went to high school and grammar school and elementary school in a place called Somerset, New Jersey, which had a gigantic marching band.
Yes.
They needed to
Big
start
shout out
getting
to Franklin
people.
Township.
Yeah, there you go. That's where I'm from. So they had to start the system by handing everybody an instrument when they were 9. You had to opt out. So everybody was automatically handed something. I was handed a clarinet. I was naturally good at it, never had lessons, and I was very good. And then I had an accident. I was first chair throughout all these people, and I had an accident. I knocked my 2 front teeth out, and I couldn't play for a couple of months. And so when I came back, they put me in fourth chair. I'm like, Lolita does not do fourth chair of anything. So because I'm so competitive, I was like, I'm going to switch to bass clarinet. So when I was 12, I switched to bass clarinet, and that's usually something that a really bad clarinet player does to stay in the orchestra or stay in the top band. But I was a really good player. So I was playing that throughout high school, and they said, you can't march with that because we can't hear it. They wanted louder instruments for marching. So I had to actually learn how to play tenor sax. So I played tenor sax in the marching band, and I played orchestral bass clarinet. So I was always kind of a lower instrument reed person, but never sang because I always played. Mm-hmm. I got to college, and the way to meet Black people at my college was to join the gospel choir because they didn't have tryouts. I didn't know I could sing. I'm not BSing there. So I show up, and I open my mouth. I'm like, wait a minute, you can sing. I'm like, I can't. I used to just sing along the radio. No one had ever heard me in a choir. So I became section leader as a freshman. I got a solo. And then my sophomore year, the best a cappella group on campus was going to gospel choir concerts to pick off soloists. What they didn't know is that I had been singing along to Manhattan Transfer songs since I was a kid and singing every part. I could learn every part. I could do all of them. And so when they did the sight reading, wait a minute, she can read music and she can harmonize. She's in. So we had 90 people try out. I was one of the 6 that got in. And that group was one of the best groups. I'm not just saying it because I was in it, but it was one of the best groups in the country. John Legend was in the group 10 years after me. All 4 years of college. That's kind of where he learned song arranging. That's how good the group was, because we did Manhattan Transfer, Take 6, Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross, all the hard part. We did all of that. And so that's where I learned to sing. I've never had voice lessons, but obviously being in a group that, performed all the time and rehearsed 3 times a week, that's where I got my chops. So that's where I learned to sing. Mm-hmm. And so I've been a background singer or a lead singer of bands pretty much as I got out of college. I decided either I was going to be a professional singer or get a job, a really good day job. And I decided there was a way to do both. So I've done both the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, awesome.
Quite a lot of your gigs over the years when I was still in Manhattan. It's a lot of fun.
Yes. He's recorded some of them. And, I have the band that I have now is a band in Scotland, believe it or not. They obviously play with other people when I'm not around. When I know I'm coming, I'm like, hey, 3 months from now, I want to do a gig, save these dates. I'll get the venue. And then we go back and forth with the music online. We have one big rehearsal the first day I get there, and we do the gigs based off of that. So I just had a monster jazz funk gig in March. I did a gig in Glasgow and a gig in Edinburgh. It was 10 people, 3 horns, 2 backup singers.
Wow.
It was
Lovely.
Incognita, Old Shaka, Tower of Power, and it was great.
Nice.
It was great. James Taylor Quartet. I mean, it was great stuff.
Love it. Oh man.
Really good show. I was really impressed, especially when you consider like one rehearsal. Like, but
Yep.
that's good musicians, you know.
Yep.
Well, I'm curious about the notion of rehearsing online. Does technology get in the way of that? Like, is there buffering or,
Oh no. We don't. Let me be clear. We don't rehearse online. We figure out the songs online. So it's like my music director, for whatever reason, he loves Sibelius. So like, you give him a song, he does it all. He just figures it all out, every single little part, because he does big bang arrangements, and so he has a really good ear with that. So I have all the music I need, so they can use that and listen to the the MP3s online. We just have one in-person rehearsal. That's it. So everybody's together once for 3 hours. That's it.
Got it. And you're going to Scotland later this year?
Yes, I'm planning. In fact, we were just talking about it. So I'm thinking they have a holiday called Hogmanay, which is actually New Year's Eve.
Yeah. Yes.
It's a big deal there. Like, people come from all over Europe for it. So I'm going to probably go during that time, have my gig the following week.
I was originally going to be there for New Year's, and my plans had changed. So, I wish I could have seen you up there, Lolita. My goodness.
Get maybe Michael and Annie McCaig to be in the audience.
There you go. Yeah. You should get them up on stage and do something incredible.
Well,
yeah.
I think I mentioned this to you when we interviewed Annie. I told her about that you gig there sometimes. So
Oh, great.
you need to really let me know. So we should get in, maybe she'll come by.
Got to be great.
Heck yeah.
You remember?
Now,
Singer to singer.
Now, we were talking about, we're going to come back to level 42 and some other things here in a minute, but something that kind of affected all of us was, we all had met through the internet for 3 to 5 years, gone to 1 or 2 tours, and then something you never think you'd ever hear in your life, a plane hitting the World Trade Center. And realizing I have a very, very great friend working in that building because I've been up in that building. She took me to her office in that building, and now I have no idea what's going on. That day, everyone remembers. I remember because I was in Dallas at the time, working in Dallas, and I tried to make calls to try to check on Lolita, try to see if anyone had heard anything. And either I couldn't get through because lines were, all circuits were busy. It was really difficult to reach anybody. And I think it was about 2 or 3 hours, maybe 4 hours later, I was able to call Carl Mueller out on the West Coast. And that's when I found out that you were okay. Just going through, as a friend went through, how has that affected life since you and I hung out? And because you've had a miraculous, incredible journey since then. But how do you talk about it very much?
Well, let me back up and say something that everyone listening to this needs to know. Winston walked 7 miles to my house that day to make sure I was okay.
Wow.
So I want people to know that that's the kind of friendship that this community engenders.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody could get through on the phone, as you guys are saying. So as you can imagine, everybody's trying to call me. Only the 3rd or 4th call got through. My family didn't know I was alive till 4 hours later. It was crazy, but Winston couldn't get me on the phone, so he walked. So I want to make sure you all know that.
Myself and Eric.
Yes, both of
Eric
you.
worked down by the World Trade Center, One Financial Center, something like that. And so he somehow got in touch with me, and, all the subways were shut down. So he's like, what's going on? I'm like, first thing he asked was like, because he knew Lolita worked there, have you heard from Lolita? I said, no. But he said, well, I'm walking, because he's basically at Wall Street area. He's like, I'm going to walk to your job, and then we'll go to find Lolita. And I think eventually phones came up. But I remember we were like halfway through Central Park and we got you on the phone. So we were like relieved, you know?
Yep.
But it was like a mass exodus of people just in the street, just walking, you know, it was crazy times.
It really was.
But we were happy.
But I will never forget that because they did that. So I wanted everybody to know that. So now the positive of how my life changed. I stayed for about another year and a half at that company, Morgan Stanley, because I got a big promotion right after that. But the person I was going downstairs with didn't make it out. And it was solely because he decided to go back to call his wife. So I was lucky that I wasn't dating anybody. I'm like, I got nobody to call. I'm leaving. So I left. And that's why I'm still here. And I decided if they try to kill me at work and they tried it twice, I better really love my job. I like my job. I love my job. So I quit. And I quit with no job. I had enough money, thankfully, thank the Lord, because I couldn't do it now. Enough money at the time to live. And so I just did all my hobbies for a year. And I played in 2 bands. I went to Australia and New Zealand. I did my reunion from college, you know, organized it, did all the things I like to do outside of work. And I said, I need to find what that next thing is. I'm now at what I call the end of the middle, but that was the end of the beginning. So I said, I got to work on Wall Street. I got to make this money. I can't be poor again. And I realized that it wasn't worth it if I could die for it. So I stopped. And then I got my next career, which was in public service. And I worked for the mayor's office in New York City for 15 years. So I went through the last 2 terms of Bloomberg because he was there for 3 terms, and all of the next mayor except for the last few months of that. And it was great. I had 6 completely different jobs. I worked on, I was in charge of the 2nd Avenue subway, which is a subway line in Manhattan that was being built, and Barclays Center for the mayor's office before they were built. I was Manhattan director of community. Yeah, I was Manhattan director of community affairs. So all sorts of crazy stories with that. I then helped with Hurricane Sandy relief. So I was out, the night Hurricane Sandy happened, I was out there doing stuff. And then the last job I had, I was the climate diplomat for New York City, which meant that I was representative for the rest of the cities around the world as to what New York City was doing for climate. It was a great experience, all of it. And, that was time to leave and do something else after that. So now I work for a climate finance firm that's based in London. And let me just talk a little bit about my London stuff. So my London street cred started with Level 42 in the fandom. I was asked to be asked to apply for a fellowship called the British American Project. And when I filled out the application, they assumed I didn't have any knowledge of the UK. I promise you I got in because I'm a Level 42 fan, because I said, I've been to Milton Keynes, I've been to Cambridge Corn Exchange. And they're like, what? I'm like, I know the Hampshire Hant song from Portsmouth. I've been to Isle of Wight 4 times. I'm like, wait a minute. And so that, I'm sure that got me in. And, you guys know me, so I'm like kind of a leader, organizer, or a person. So I ended up being in charge of that organization 4 years after I got in. Then I was in charge of something else that was British related, and I was off to the races. And so I ended up getting dubbed, whatever you call it, installed by Queen Elizabeth II in 2021 as a member of the Order of the British Empire at MBE. Very few Americans get that, and I believe I'm the only living Black female American that has it. And I got it largely because of all my experiences with the UK, and that love of that came from the early trips with you guys.
Wow.
That's amazing.
I on a personal note, and I've told Lolita this, I find you inspiring, your story inspiring. Things like that could change someone, but you took it and you just flew with it and didn't let anything get in your way. And I find it inspiring and personally amazing. And I'm just so glad that you're reaching your dreams and your goals, and it's just incredible to read it and see it. So,
and I would add to that, Mikey, every time, I live, in the tri-state area, every time 9/11 comes around and there's a news report of people looking back on a day, every once in a while you see Lolita, and she handles these interviews so well, whether it's TV or radio or print. And I always admired how, you always seem like you could talk to you about it, like it wasn't, you're always worried about being sensitive to people who went through something so horrific. But you've always handled it with class and dignity. It's been great. And to see you take your life after those incidents, and because we haven't even talked about 1993, and just make it your own. It's really been incredible.
Well, Winston might remember of all people that the first week I was on TV like 3 or 4 times, like right after it happened. But my thing was, I'm the only person that is not breaking down, talking about it, who actually walked out. And people need to know that 15,000 people walked out of that building. And most of us were not physically hurt. But I felt like I had to tell the story because people thought everybody died or everybody's bleeding. I'm like, no, we're mentally messed up, but we're physically fine. So I kept it together because I thought it was important to be that emissary that people knew. Yes, this was a really horrific thing, but a lot of us changed our lives because of it. So that's why I always make myself available to talk about it. I knew 300 people there because it was the world headquarters of my company. So I went through this with a lot of people I know, and I say at least half of them changed their lives completely.
Yeah, it would. It would. But you, congratulations. What the member of the British Empire? You said you're the first one to be given that as an American. Did I hear that right?
No. What I'm saying is, I think I may be one. I think I'm the only living Black female American.
Okay.
That's what I mean. So, because I know another Black male who's an OBE, and he's had it for quite some time, and he says he does not remember anybody getting it since he's gotten it. He's like 75 years old.
Wow.
As an American.
Fantastic. That's fantastic.
I think you're the second MBE we've had on the show.
Very cool.
That's right.
Who else?
Yeah. Yolanda Charles.
Yeah, Yolanda Charles. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
And we've had one OG on the show so far.
Mikey's trying to give you a promotion, Lolita. Yeah. I said you're trying to give her a promotion. Did you say you were the only one in America?
No. I'm like, no. One thing I wanted to bring up in case you guys don't, because I haven't heard the question yet. No one's asked me my favorite songs, and I have strong opinions.
I have an idea. What's your favorite songs from Low 42? We'll have this part that you brought it up.
Can we guess? Could we guess?
We got to it. Oh yeah, guess. I want to see if you guess.
All right, so we're talking. How many are we talking? 3, 4,
Winston,
5.
4. Winston, you can't speak. I told him what they were. So the other 2 of y'all, I want to see if you guess it right.
Okay. All right.
Go
ahead, Bob. I'll let you go first.
All right, so I think Lying Still is going to be on there just because you covered it. I'm going to say Children Say. I'm going to say, I know one. I know one for sure. God, what's the name of it? Not True Believers, but My Hero. I'll say those. Those are my choices.
Mikey?
I was going to say Children Say and Love in a Peaceful World.
Ooh. Okay.
Nobody tells
I will say what they are.
Go ahead.
Thank you. That's why I wanted to bring up. Children Say is correct.
Cool.
True Believers. I like My Hero. I love True Believers. When they played it live on the Grupo Mark King gig, I lost my mind because I don't think I've ever heard it live since. But especially when they stop in the middle, just kills me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
True Believers. Pursuit of Accidents.
Nice. That's right. You do like instrumental music.
And 43.
Nice.
I use 43 because I have a lot. I'm almost best friends with Christian McBride and some other bass players, and so I'm like, if you want to know what Level 42 can do in like a sort of a more popular way of playing it, but like the bass line is killing it, I play them 43.
So, can you talk about your friendship with Christian McBride? I've always wanted to ask you about that.
Sure. So it's a funny story. I had always sort of liked his music, and then I found out that he lived in my apartment building. I was like, no, he can't live here we lived in the same place for 9 years, and I live in a big enough apartment building, as Winston knows. It's possible to not know somebody lives here. I found out that Joshua Redmond had lived here at one point. Mike Clark lives here now. I've still never seen him. So this became like the jazzers' place to live. So we got connected, and it was off to the races because I am on the board of something called the National Jazz Museum in Harlem, and I've been involved with them off and on in some way for 20 years. He's the artistic director. That's how we actually connected, and it was off to the races. And so we're like best friends. I've seen him play everywhere. Tokyo, obviously he's in charge of the Newport Jazz Festival, seen him there, whenever he plays New York. And it's just great. He's just a lovely, lovely person and just so unbelievably, ridiculously talented.
Yeah, ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, so.
That's cool.
Yep.
Lolita, you said the first time that you saw Level 42 was when?
The show that we were all at in Leicester.
oh, that's right. Yeah, the Mumford Hall. Have you seen any shows lately?
Yes, I saw 2 of them at the O2. So
nice.
I guess that was 2 years ago, and I was at the Royal Albert Hall. Was fantastic.
I know.
That was like 2021. I went to that, and Jen Boogie she couldn't go at the last minute, and she was like 6th row. What I didn't know is I was surrounded by level heads, but I didn't know what any of them looked like. So I should just have realized that. So it was really great because the crowd was into it. It was a great venue for them. And then, like I said, the next year I went to the O2 shows. I went one night with Dave Goodall, and we stood up. I'm like, I ain't stand up no more. So sorry. I used to do that with y'all, but now my knees hurt. I can't do it. So we stood up. And then the other night, my best friend and I went the other night, and we were in the stalls, and that was better. Kim, she flew over for the show. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What other groups are you into? Yeah.
Well, it's funny because there's a through line here. My favorite other 2 groups are Steely Dan and Incognito.
Lovely.
And I think that the through line is like, really, great music that's kind of funky, but like a lot of general audiences can listen to it. It's not inaccessible.
Yep.
Like Snarky Puppy or Lettuce, where you have to really kind of like put your head in it. Like everybody can kind of listen to this stuff. And the bass line is prominent, great singing, just all those things and interesting chords. That's sort of my thing. So these 3 groups have always been tops for me. I've seen Steely Dan in some iteration probably 20 times when it was Rock and Soul Review, and it's still it was like Phoebe Snow and Bob Skaggs, and they would do that those performances in the New York area. And then Walter Becker came back, but he would stand there and like look like he was still on drugs, like just not really playing a lot. And then he did the Kamakiriad and other stuff started happening. I've been seeing them since then. And then of course Incognito, they were very popular in New York in the late 90s, because of CD 101.9. They mainstreamed them. And so they were played all the time. So whenever they were here, I got to see them. And it turns out that a friend of mine was friends with the person Bluey was dating at the time. So I got to meet Bluey way back, I want to say 2001. And then 2003, and Dan James was there for this. We saw them together, and Bluey hung out with us before the show. And we were taking a picture in the World End Cafe because they were playing the Jazz Cafe. And somebody stole my purse. Somebody stole my purse, and I just gotten there. It was 350 pounds in my purse because back then you didn't have, the credit cards like you do now. Right. And Bluey felt so bad, he gave me the money.
Wow.
Never asked for it back. He said, you flew all the way over here to see my show. You're taking a picture. Somebody steals your money. And Dan and I were just talking about this. I forgot he was there for that. And, that's the kind of guy Bluey was. And so we connected since then. Bluey will randomly email me when I got the MBE, because the list is public. I got a random email from Bluey. And he's like, Lolita, congratulations. I'm like, wait a minute. He read the list and saw my name. It was crazy. So I actually just saw him in April during the show. And actually, Citrus Sun played in Tokyo when I was there last year. So I got to see him then. So it's great following all these bands. Now, Donald Fagen doesn't like talking to people. So it's not like I've seen him and have, memories with him, talking to him. But I just love the shows. And you guys probably know, I know Winston knows this, that they have album nights when they do the Beacon Theater. I don't think they do it anymore. But for like 15 years, they'd have Royal Scam Night, Asia Night, Gaucho Night. I always went to Royal Scam Night because I know half those songs you'll never see live otherwise. Like Caves of Myra. You'll never see that song live unless it's there, right? So, but yeah, so those are my 3 bands, in other words.
Okay.
Well, I was going to say, I love that Incognito has been around as long as Level 42 has been around. Yes. And I have a poster hanging up there there's a gig that they both did together, which is like, oh wow, that's cool.
Well, on the Steely Dan front, I was going to say I had just seen them for the first time. You know, they call it Steely Dan. It's really Donald Fagen, but
Right.
I just saw them open for the Eagles late last year, I think it was.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
really good. And there's a drummer they have, Keith Carlock, who's just like, oh my God, he's a machine. This guy, he's like, whoa.
I'll tell you, they've had the best drummers when they started. Well, best musicians, but drummers particularly when they started touring again. Because I remember they had what's his name used to be with the Yellow Jackets. He sadly passed away. Ricky Lawson.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
He played with them a few tours, and I remember Lolita. I don't know if you remember. It's like Bob Z came to town, and we saw Steely Dan at Roseland Ballroom.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
Remember that? And we were like right up front. Like it was
it Two Against
remotely.
Nature album? Which album was it? Two Against Nature?
I don't remember.
It was. I think they had just had a new album out, and that's why the show was like
that was great.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yes.
And I found the picture online, and I'll have to dig it up. But it's from the side of the stage, and you can see the three of us in the crowd, like standing. I mean, it's very small. But I was like, oh yeah, because I remember that was such a good show. Because Roseland Ballroom was kind of a dump.
Yes.
But they would clean it up when they put on shows. It's the weirdest thing, because I've been there a few times when that would be like where the overflow line would go for the Letterman show. Like they would instead of having hundreds of people standing outside the Ed Sullivan Theater, you get your ticket and they take you to the back. You go in the back door of the Roseland Ballroom. You just hang out in there. And I was like, this place is a dump. But every time I went to a show, it's almost like, okay, well, we got a show this month. We clean it up, and then they let it sit dormant for 2 months. And the next time you go in there, it's like a dump. But I remember that particular show. And the other thing I remember is Don had a hotel room in Times Square. And I remember going up to his room, and we wait and get ready. And then we were coming down. The elevators weren't working. So we had to walk all the way down to the street level. Maybe it was like 25 floors or something to go to the gig.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Fun times. Rest in peace, Don.
Hey, yes.
But I was thinking, it just came back to me when I saw them a few times when they started touring again with Becker. They would do, the band would play for like a good 15, 20 minutes, just doing instrumental versions of songs.
Yep.
That obviously they weren't going to perform in the main set. And I was like, oh, this is cool. So you got to hear some stuff. And then the band would come on. And then when they split up the show into the second half. And so when they came back, the band would just come out and do a couple of more instrumental songs. Then they would start, the vocal songs or whatever. So I always thought that was kind of cool. It's like, okay, well, we'll do this medley of stuff that you're not going to hear us play live, So that was always a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Lolita, we're almost out of time, but I wanted to ask you. I've been wanting to ask you, what's your favorite album?
Oh, wow. I think actually, in a weird way, I'm not just saying this because you just did it. I really like True Colors.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And Pursuit of Accidents. Those two are my favorites. True Colors and Pursuit of Accidents are my two faves.
Yeah.
Good choice with Pursuit. That's my favorite. Because because that's, obviously that's the first album I ever heard. So that will always have that. I'm sure if it was like True Colors was the first, that might be my favorite album because it's just this nostalgic trip. Mm-hmm. Because I knew Star Child, but I never got the Level 42 album until I got the second album. Then I went back and got the first album. But we were going over that during the podcast, and I'm like, man, it's hard for me to pick like my top 3 albums. I'm like, True Colors is like a killer.
Yeah. And now that you said that, True Colors was the first back cassette tape that I got. That might be why I feel that way. Because I went to a record store in New Brunswick. I can't remember the name of it, but it was like right behind
the train. That was Vintage
station.
Vinyl, probably.
Oh my God, you remember? Yes! So I went there. Like, can you order these tapes for me? And I had to wait for them. And the first one I got was True Colors.
Wow.
That's in New Brunswick?
Yep. Well, no, Vintage Vinyl was in like Edison, I believe. Maybe that's.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. I just know there was one in Manhattan.
No.
Wow, I didn't know that.
They just closed the Vintage Vinyl in Edison about 2 years ago, and kind of sad.
Wow.
From New Jersey record stores, there's one really great one still left in Wayne, New Jersey called Sound Exchange. And I used to get a lot of Level stuff there when I wasn't getting it in New York. And they still have Level 42 stuff there.
Oh, that's cool.
It's like a time warp. I can walk in there, the store has not changed. And the people are very nice there. So
I miss Tower Records for that reason. Win and I would go there like, I want a live Miles Davis from like 1973, and the guy would know exactly which bit it was in and which concert it was. And I miss going to stores where people actually knew what the hell they were talking about.
Yeah. I know.
Well, I know that Tower Records on West 4th was the best, and you could go into the departments and they knew. I mean, typically you think like you go to a big record shop, like it always seemed to me like the people in the classical department, they really know their stuff, because it's like, who else, if you don't like that music, who else wants to work in that department? They're not going to throw some 17-year-old, right? But going into that tower, that second level where in the back, when you first came up the stairs, to the left was jazz. If you kept going further back, it was classical. But that, for a big store like that, they knew their stuff. Like so much to like, you come up there with two albums in your hand, they're like, yo, if you like this, you're going to really like this. And, it was like a personalized touch. And you could ask them for anything random that you thought, well, no one's going to know about this. And they would know. And then, behind it, outside around the corner, was that discount warehouse.
Right.
You could spend hours in there going through stuff.
Yes.
That's a ghost you just stirred up, man. That's crazy.
I know. It's like, wow.
Yeah, I used to spend so much time and so much money in there. And it was like, it was like a job. Like, okay, you're going to have to go through all of this stuff and you would find gold.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
So I have a question. So most memorable interaction with the band. Like, I know one of them would be after 9/11 when we went to Isle of Wight.
Oh, yeah.
You can speak to that one, because that was amazing in a few reasons for me and for both of us. And then whatever other ones you think of. So I know you randomly ran into Mark King on the street. So
so I guess I have three. The first one, when we decided to go to Isle of Wight as part of our ILF experience, and I got in touch with Mark's wife Rhea and just said, hey, just so guys know, there's a bunch of Level 42 fans coming to the bar. Well, I guess it was Saturday that we were there. And so we were there, we get there, and Mark comes out and we lost our minds. Minds.
I remember that.
So that was fantastic experience. So that was obviously for a lot of us the first time we'd ever met him, and the whole thing. He wasn't touring; he was just there, living on Isle of Wight. So that was the first time. Second time was I had already before 9/11, I had already bought my tickets to go to the concerts that were going to happen in November 2001. And so people are going to cancel. I'm like, no, I just got to get on a plane and I just got to get it together and go. And in the interim, Mark had found out that I had survived, and the Digest community was pretty active. So at that point, because this was 2001 already, so he knew who we were. And so on the stage, he's saying, "I want eyes," and pointed to me. And I was like, okay, thumbs up. And so I'm like, wow. And he made sure that I got a pass to be backstage and just kind of hang out with them. So is Rhea, his wife, and family, and other people. And there weren't a lot of people invited backstage for that, but he's like, are you okay? And we had a really great conversation. And that was the beginning of that week of gigs that we were going to. So I remember Bilston and maybe one other gig, he did the same thing. He played the song and he looked and made sure he saw me. And it was just magic. It was amazing that he cared enough to make sure I was okay.
I was standing next to you that night, Lolita, at the Jazz Cafe, because you kept telling me, Michael, don't tell me the set list. I don't want to know the set list.
Right. And then last time was last summer. I was randomly on the street in Edinburgh, and I see somebody with a shirt that says "Turn Up the Bass," and I thought it was funny. And I looked up, and I yelled, "Mark King!" He's crossed the street taking a taxi. We'll turn around. Neither one of us lived there. There was some festival they were playing in Scotland. So I guess he had taken the train to Edinburgh, was going to stay there overnight and then go to the festival or something like that. So the point being, neither one of us lived there. He's like, Lolita? I'm like, yes. And so it was just really great conversation because I had not, been around him in a long time because I didn't go backstage for any of the gigs I had just seen before. So it was kind of cool. And that just was like last summer.
That's brilliant.
That's the one that blew my mind when you told that.
Yeah.
Just the randomness of it's enough that you go to another city and you just run into someone that you know.
Yeah.
Right.
But for you to be in Scotland and then just look up and there's Mark King, it's just like, is this a dream?
Right. and neither one of us lived there. It was like crazy. Like, is that him?
Right.
Like,
Right.
I was like, it's him.
Now, 2001 though, that the Jazz Cafe shows was before the Isle of Wight, correct?
No, I don't remember. I thought they were after because I had just flown there. And the first show that I saw was the Isle of Wight show.
Okay, because I'm thinking of maybe it's because that I remember that I had the passport issue, and that was for the. I wound up missing Jazz Cafe shows because I had to get a new passport, and then when I showed up for the Isle of Wight show, I went to the venue hours before for some. I don't know if I was picking up a ticket, and I ran into Mark's wife. And
well, we've been to several iterations of Isle of Wight shows, so maybe that was 2000.
Right, but she mentioned the passport issue.
Okay.
That and then I remember at the end of the show, like we were all milling around, and she came out and gave us the passes to go upstairs.
Oh, so was Jazz Cafe before then?
It was because I missed those shows because what happened was my friend Larry Collada, he came to New York. We were going to fly together from Newark. We get to the airport, and that's when they looked at my passport and they're like, "This is expired." And I'm like, "Oh my God!" Like, and I was just like heartbroken. And then he was like, "I won't go then. I'll just come and hang with you." I'm like, "No." I'm like, we need two depressed people in my apartment. No. So he went by himself. Has never been out of the country. Never been to England, right? So he went to the Jazz Cafe. I think we had tickets for 2 shows or something. And then
I forgot all about that. Okay, then
right, and then I was able to get because I had given up, and a guy that worked for my company, he was like a personal assistant to the owners of the company that I worked for, and they're like uber rich, and he was like, "You could get a passport. I get your passport tomorrow." It sounded like a drug deal, right? And he's like, "No, like because at the time you would make an appointment to some government office to get a passport, and there were these companies that would book all the appointments, and then you could pay them. And I wound up having to pay like $200 to get this thing next day. So you just needed an appointment, and you need tickets to show that yes, I am traveling soon. I got it, and I made it, and it was just like this big thing because by the time I got there, Larry had told everybody, and everyone knew that I had the passport issue. And then I remember that was after 9/11, and we got and I remember us being and that was like one of the best times of my life because I'd never been backstage at no show or anything like that. That doesn't happen, and it was just a mind blowing. But I literally have a picture because I was at the far left of the stage where the keyboards were, and when Mark came out on stage, he saw me and he came over and shook my hand. He's like, "Oh my gosh, you made it!" And someone took a picture of that.
That's great.
That's
I
nice.
didn't know, and they gave it to me, and I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome!" So I still have that picture on my computer.
That's great.
Us shaking hands. But in any event, not to take over.
I had forgotten that the Jazz. That's my fault. I forgot that the Jazz Cafe.
Well, it's all. I mean, honestly, it's all a blur. And I don't have a great memory, but because of those particular circumstances, I remember it that way. And I distinctly remember, like we took that picture and whatever, and we met like the family and stuff. And I remember you were like, "We should probably exit, like not overdo our welcome."
Yeah,
like,
I was very conscious of that.
Right. But it was just a special thing, and it was, shows that, guys and girls, like they cared about people their fans.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, they sure do.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
And
I want to add. Well,
go ahead, Lolita.
I was going to say, before you guys sign me off, I wanted to add one more favorite thing, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Favorite live performances that I've seen.
Cool.
So, and I think when you definitely were there, I'm not sure if the other two of you were there. 99 Jazz Cafe World Machine Live.
Yes. Awesome.
Yes,
Brilliant.
that was a song I thought I would never hear live. And remember when he sang, "Who knows why they come, where they go?" He stopped singing. We sang it, and
Yep.
I have that recording, and I play that like probably once every couple of months because I just love it.
Bro.
That True Believers that I was talking about.
Yeah.
At the Group of Mark King. And my third one is Sunbed Song 2010 in LA.
Yeah.
That's
I miss those.
Not a fan of that song, Lolita.
What?
Yep.
Boo.
Yeah, I never liked the song until I saw them live when I was at the filming for the Live at Reading DVD.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, and I've said this before. On the record, it just seems like the song just keeps going on and nothing happens. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't really care for the song. And they did it live. And I knew they were going to play it because that was a tour where people got to pick songs or whatever. And I'm like, okay, whatever, and they played it. I'm like, oh my God, it's really good live. Like, I can't believe how, and it's like, I can't believe I'm really enjoying this song because it was amazing live. Now, I remember the World Machine, like that tour, like we were also singing the horn part accents, the ba-da part.
Ba-da-ba-da, yeah.
Yes.
And the other thing that I remember about one of the Jazz Cafe shows is that whatever that year was where Jacko was playing with them as well, right? And they played one of the slow songs.
Leaving Me Now.
Right. And then, at some point, one night, everyone started singing a part of the song. Right. And it was great. But then they tried to recreate it the next night because it was a lot of the same people there. And they're like, the fans messed it up because they came in at the wrong time.
Right.
No.
And it was just sort of hilarious. And I can remember Jacko like cringing at that part because it's just like classic. Like we're in the fans were in such a state to like, yeah, this is our moment, and then screwed it up.
Those Jazz Cafe gigs were amazing, and what was really cool is when Mark King started making copies of the concerts and selling them directly. We were all excited. We couldn't wait to get it. And then you open it up, and there's a picture of me, Lolita, Raymond, and Matt Blackman, I think, on the inset. I was like, holy cow.
Wow,
holy cow.
Wait, I don't remember that. I don't remember that at all. Oh, my God, really?
I remember being around you folks and like, how am I not in this picture? like, obviously, it's not a racial thing. Lolita made it. It's like the Boone thing. The second I walk away, pictures get taken, band members come out of the woodwork.
It's great.
But those Jazz Cafe gigs were brilliant too.
And they really were.
Yeah,
in the
excellent.
cold, it didn't matter.
It didn't matter.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well,
this has been fun.
Lolita, again, it's been amazing to reconnect and touch base and hear your amazing voice, and I know you're going to keep doing amazing things.
I really appreciate you guys giving me the time to just connect with you on this. I've loved listening to the podcast. I've learned so much about all of you and about the band. And it made me go back to Spotify. Winston can tell you this. I went back to Spotify. Somebody has level 42 complete. They call it up to, before Forever Now. And there's stuff on there. I'm like, this is not really right because we know this music. So it's just, you guys made me go back into the back catalog and listen to songs again. And, I appreciate all of the work that you've done to bring it back to life for some of us.
Well, that's awesome. Thanks, Lolita.
Well, thanks.
Really appreciate you being here. You've lived the life for sure. And really, thanks for sharing all your stories and being a friend to us for decades. We really is appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Guys, Winston, Mikey, Lolita, thanks for all being here. We're going to leave you now, but we'll wait till you return, and we'll see you next time, everybody. Happy Sad Day.
Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.